Imagine walking down a cobbled street in Cornwall, the sun barely touching the mist-covered landscape. The smell of freshly baked pastry drifts through the air, tantalizing your senses as the heavy smell of sea salt mixes with something comforting, something warm. It's lunchtime. Your stomach growls. Then there it is, the Cornish pasty, still warm from the oven, wrapped in grease-proof paper, waiting for you to peel back its golden, flaky exterior. It's more than just a meal. It's a story of survival, ingenuity, and the quiet revolution that changed British food forever. It all started with miners, brave men who ventured into the Earth's dark belly to pull out precious tin and copper, laboring under conditions we can hardly imagine today. But it wasn't just the work that defined their lives. It was the food they carried into the depths of those mines. The humble pasty became the lifeline of these workers, the sustenance that powered them through long, grueling shifts beneath the earth. But there's much more to the Cornish pasty than just a meal. There's a tale of innovation that forever altered the way we think about food. A meal for the harshest conditions. Before the Cornish pasty, feeding the working class in Britain was nothing short of a struggle. People had to make do with what they could, and eating a hearty, wholesome meal was often out of reach for many workers. A slice of bread, a hunk of cheese, or a bit of salted meat. These were the standard meals for those toiling in the fields, factories, or deep underground. The idea of carrying a proper meal, one that could sustain a long day of hard labor, seemed impossible. But for those miners in Cornwall, the problem was even worse. Imagine working hundreds of feet underground, the air thick with arsenic dust, your hands coated in grime, and the cramped space so small that standing up wasn't an option. It was a dangerous, suffocating environment, and yet every day the miners had to eat. They needed something portable, something they could hold in one hand, and most importantly, something that would stay hot for hours. Food that could survive the journey down the mine shaft and still be fresh by the time they broke for lunch. Before the pasty, nothing could meet those needs. The birth of the Cornish pasty. The genius of the pasty lies in its simplicity. It wasn't some complex dish crafted by chefs or culinary experts. It was born out of necessity, a solution to a problem faced by hard-working people. The Cornish pasty wasn't an invention from scratch. It was a reinvention, a clever adaptation of something old to make it work for a new generation of laborers. In the 13th century, pastries filled with venison and spices were a delicacy for the wealthy, but they were impractical for the average worker. They needed something durable, something that wouldn't spoil in the heat, and above all, something that could withstand the rough conditions of the mines. Cornwall, a region known for its mining history, became the birthplace of this ingenious creation. For centuries, miners had struggled with the issue of eating safely underground. Arsenic dust was a real threat. Miners would often fall ill or die not from the air they breathed, but from the food they ate with poisoned hands. The solution? The pasty. It was a simple design, but one that would change food history forever. The thick, crimped edge, almost like a handle, wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was pure, practical genius. It allowed miners to hold the pasty with their dirty hands, eating the filling without touching the poisoned edge. When you think about it, this wasn't just food. It was survival. The perfect design. A portable meal. What made the Cornish pasty so revolutionary was its ability to keep a meal fresh and hot for hours. The thick pastry served as insulation, keeping the hot filling warm for up to 8 hours, a miracle in an age before thermos flasks and portable heaters. The combination of meat, potatoes, and vegetables was a complete meal in itself, providing the necessary fuel for the miners' grueling shifts. But the pasty wasn't just practical, it was also delicious. The combination of flavors, the rich, savory filling, and the satisfying texture of the pastry made every bite something to look forward to. It wasn't just food, it was a ritual. For those miners, the pasty became a symbol of home, of comfort, even in the most difficult conditions. It was the one thing they could rely on to get them through the day. As the years passed, the pasty evolved, spreading from Cornwall to the rest of Britain and beyond. But its origins, grounded in practicality and survival, remained at its core. It was the food that worked, the food that understood the needs of the people who ate it. A revolution in British food. The Cornish pasty didn't just solve the problem of food for miners. It changed the way Britain thought about food. Before the pasty, working-class meals were piecemeal, often consisting of separate components that needed to be assembled at mealtime. But the pasty was the complete meal, integrated into one portable, durable package. It was the first real convenience food for the working class, long before ready meals or packaged sandwiches. It was a working man's lunch, and it was revolutionary. By the late 1800s, the Cornish pasty had spread across Britain, adapting to the needs of other industries. Miners in northern England, Wales, and the Midlands all embraced the pasty, with variations that suited local tastes and ingredients. But the fundamental design remained unchanged. A hot, portable meal that required no preparation and could be eaten with one hand. It was food for workers, and it was a symbol of practical ingenuity. The Pasty Wars, a battle for authenticity. But as the Cornish pasty spread and became more popular, it faced new challenges. By the 20th century, mass production had entered the scene, and suddenly, the pasty was being made on an industrial scale. Factories began churning out pasties by the thousands, and soon, supermarkets were selling them in bulk. But something was lost in the process. The authenticity, the craftsmanship, and the love that went into making each pasty by hand. The mass-produced pasty was different. The thick, robust pastry became thin and uniform. The filling was processed, standardized, and no longer had the same texture and taste as the traditional version. Worse still, companies began labeling their products as Cornish pasties, even though they weren't made in Cornwall and didn't adhere to the traditional methods. Cornwall fought back. The Campaign for Protected Geographical Indication, PGI status, took years. But in 2011, they won. The Cornish pasty was granted PGY status, meaning that only pasties made in Cornwall using the traditional methods could be called Cornish pasties. This victory was a triumph for authenticity and a reminder that some things are worth protecting, even in an era of mass production. The legacy. More than just a meal. Today, the Cornish pasty remains a symbol of British food culture, a reminder of a time when food was about more than just nourishment. It was about survival, ingenuity, and identity. From its origins in Cornwall's mines to its place in British food culture, the pasty has stood the test of time. It's more than just a meal, it's a link to the past, a connection to the lives of the men and women who worked so hard to make a living, and a tribute to the practical ingenuity that defines working-class culture. The Cornish pasty has inspired countless other foods, from sausage rolls to pies, and has left its mark on the food industry in ways we often take for granted. So the next time you take a bite of a pasty, remember, you're not just eating a meal, you're tasting history, a history that shaped British food culture forever. If this story has sparked your curiosity, think about the pasty the next time you walk past a bakery. Take a moment to appreciate the history behind that warm, flaky pastry. And if you're ever in Cornwall, don't miss the chance to taste a traditional Cornish pasty, made with care, crimped by hand, and steeped in centuries of tradition. It's not just food, it's a piece of British history. From the depths of Cornwall's mines to the kitchens of today, the Cornish pasty's journey is one of survival, revolution, and authenticity. It's a food that has stood the test of time, evolving while never forgetting its roots. The pasty changed British food forever, not just by feeding a nation, but by reminding us all of the power of ingenuity, tradition, and the simple joy of a good meal. Relive your cherished memories. Watch our video now and take a journey down memory lane. Don't miss out. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected and be a part of this nostalgic experience.